All right, everybody. So I have kind of like a general outlook picture today. I'll get into some individual names I'm looking at here in a little bit, but I feel like there's a lot to kind of break down and look at here as a broader market picture and, some general sentiment coming into this week. So to start with, Friday, the market is closed. So we have a short week. Wednesday is FOMC. I've been talking about this a lot with Warsh as his first time leading the Fed here, and he will be doing the Q&A and presser and everything. So I feel like that's a curveball for the market right now. We don't know his tone. We don't know his approach, what he'll have to say off the recent data or anything like that. So that leads me to believe that the indices, as and mainly SPY and QQQ, when I talk about this, will be kind of muted Monday and Tuesday, right? Unless we get some crazy reaction off of I stopped keeping up with the Trump headlines and Iran headlines over the weekend. Just whatever the market does, the market does. So to kind of jump in here and start talking about what I'm seeing is if you zoom out on a chart, you don't watch TV, the news, or keep up with X, right? IWM had its record closing high this week. And this is a 3 bar. It's an outside bar. We took last week's lows and recovered all the way to the top of the range highs. Definitely not a bearish look here in the Russell. Similar story for the equal weighted S&P. Took out last week's lows right to that weekly 8 EMA, closed at highs, outside bar. Very bullish look here on the equal weight S&P. These are good signs you want to see. Looks like breadth is expanding. Internals are improving across the market. Through all the fuss this week, it looks like the home builders, like a rate sensitive area, is putting in a reversal, right? Weekly 200 SMA. We wiped liquidity here. Big failed 2 back in the middle of May, and have been trying to slowly move up here. Inside week last week, this week we broke that to the upside and closed at the highs, right? It doesn't look like semi names or the S&P came down 5% in the last week, right? So much different look here when you kind of zoom out and look at some other things. Transports, all-time highs, right? Not and just a 2-up candle, right? Weekly ADMA supportive there, all-time highs. So, looking across the board, market looks terrific and is still continuing to trend higher. I'm not going to delete all my lines, but just, SPY, I've been talking about that weekly ADMA, that April VWAP here. From the gap up, we held a little bit of a, indecision doji type candle here on SPY, but, closed back over the 8 and 21 day moving averages here, getting very tight. So, again, we've seen a lot of these kind of like, I won't even call it a flash crash, quote unquote, but market picks back up pretty quickly. High beta names, no doubt, got destroyed, right? If you were long high beta, you got wrecked on a 5% pullback here in a week on the overall market. So I'm not trying to, poo-poo the pullback we had, but if you kind of zoom out and take everything into consideration, right? And the Q's actually printed a big failed 2 weekly candle here, right? It closed green, weekly hammer off the 8 EMA. Everything looks a-okay across the board as we come into the FOMC binary event. So with that being said, let's start to kind of break down and look at some sectors that we've seen some activity in. Okay, so TAN, solar, very big run through May. We just had our second largest print ever in the TAN solar ETF, right? 6304. We closed right there to end the week. I think that print actually came in Friday morning early. So again, what do we have? Uptrend, prior high area, now support. The weekly 21 EMA has been trend support along the way. We kind of broke out, got away from our moving averages and came back and rechecked it. Didn't close green on the week by any means, but weekly trend support test here. Everything looks fine trend wise, but obviously if you sat through this on solar names, you're kind of hurting. So Um, let's look at some of the solar names and where they are sitting. Again, FSLR, probably our biggest name to watch, right? Briefly made an all-time high there. No, not all-time high. I'm sorry if you go all the way back here. Well, yeah, new all-time high. Briefly made a new all-time high. Everybody's saying long at over 310. After it's ran this far, again, I won't reiterate how long we've been talking about this, but what did FSLR do this week? Pulled back to that weekly 8 EMA, the 50 retrace from this entire run up, and a prior high area, right? This is a fair value gap, to be fair. No pun intended there. So inverse fair value gap, we broke over it, retested it. Great, looking support area to hold. We continued to see, kind of bullish solar flow the whole time. There were some put buyers into the lows. Just like people chase calls, you will see people chase puts the other way. Maybe add some protection there on some other positions. It's kind of the problem with it, right? We don't know there. The full positioning of everything. EMPH, same type of deal. Broke out of a, year plus long base. Big move up. Feels like a violent retracement, but again, back to the 50 retrace 50% of the move. The weekly 8 EMA, prior highs held and wicked back higher. Again, none of these produce like a failed 2 candle where we push back green, but it kind of gives you a base area to look here, and not all moves have to be, straight back up. Maybe we kind of base and like recheck this area a little bit and then like stair step back up. But either way, great area to kind of build out here, and you can like make a constructive reasoning here for the tan solar ETF, right? The dark pool came on a pullback, right? If we had that big print come up here at the top and we pull back, I would not like that look. So breakout retest look on many of these solar names. Second largest dark pool print. Again, not seeing maybe not completely actionable, but worth discussing here and kind of putting on the group's radar as we move forward to see if we see anything develop. Obviously had that decent bull risk reversal in Solar Edge, where they sold puts and then financed a bull spread out to the end of the year. So definitely some bullish positioning there. Also, another thing we're starting to see pick up is a lot of travel flow. And I kind of want to, like, there's a broad picture to paint here because some of the flow we're seeing in like this booking, right? We're seeing flow in this. Notice that they're like writing puts a lot, right? And why do I think they're doing that? Well, we're under our moving averages on the week, right? So, if you think that booking has, bottomed, but it's going to take a little bit, this is where you start to sell puts. You start to sell, put credit spreads. You start to collect options premium versus buying them because, right, this could chop around still. It could come up, test the 21, chop around. It could take a few weeks for this move to, kind of take place. So this is where and why you would sell premium. You're at the weekly 200 SMA. This is a huge spot. You're at the 50% retracement from this entire move from the bear market lows to all-time highs. So you're at a big support area, and why you're probably starting to see some people write premium on these names. Expedia, again, at weekly support, it's trying to make a higher low. But again, kind of a choppy area. It really needs back through this monthly 50 retrace here, right? That's where it keeps stalling out to get going. But again, this could, take a few weeks to play out. And like, this is where you start to, write premium and things like that versus just buying directional calls here. But, it puts other things on your radar. So when we think about travel, they're hitting these broadly. I've talked about Airbnb a lot. Again, another name that's chopping, but looks constructive. But let's look at airlines, right? Let's look at jets. So we talked about airlines on, when we first started to get those peace deal headlines and they started to look constructive. But let's look at this on a bigger time frame, right? So this is Jets monthly from inception. Everybody likes trend lines, so just so you have something like a frame of reference, right? A lot of compression building here, right? It's been sideways, in this base since COVID, right? COVID really hurt all the travel stocks. And again, another kind of big fair value gap on the monthly that we are trying to flip now. So very tight price action on the monthly. We are trying to take May highs here at 29.76. We closed right under it. So if we do break that, June has the chance to expand. I think it could go up and recheck that, high sitting up here, that big wick they put in before we sold off in the beginning of the year. So, Jets is looking very constructive as a travel sector, a little bit, better than saying buying Expedia or booking right now, but very powerful look here as we scroll down to a weekly, right? Outside bar, recheck the 8 and 21 on the weekly as they are curling up and close back at highs. Again, very choppy week on the indice, but a sector that closed at the highs for the week. So you're seeing a little bit of relative strength. You're seeing breadth expand, more sectors starting to work outside of the semiconductor AI trade, which is, undoubtedly the strongest. So it's not wrong to focus there, but I'm just trying to kind of paint a bigger picture here. So, travel names are kind of setting up without going, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on individual names. This is just more of a broad stroke kind of look at things. But, DAL up here into highs, right? Very strong looking name. Right off that weekly ADMA, same kind of outside bar. Same thing for UAL. I mean, this is a beautiful, base breakout attempt here on UAL. It's been consolidating and getting very tight here since, early 2025, late 2024. This is a great looking weekly chart setup, right? So, starting to see more things kind of come together and look constructive. Also with travel, RCL is one we talked about when I came into the month of June, right? I was like, wow, this monthly candle for May is extremely constructive, right? You've got the monthly fair value gap, got the monthly 21 EMA, which has been major support here over the last couple years. It's a failed 2 candle, right? We took this liquidity, took range lows, hammered up and closed higher. Now RCL is trying to take May highs, right? So if we continue to hold over May highs, we tried last week, got the candle closed lower. Again, another failed 2 weekly candle here within a failed 2, monthly look here. So as long as we stay over May highs, this 288.86, I think RCL can work to expand higher, right? So this red 50% retracement is the prior quarter. I just want to double check that. Yes, the prior quarter. So RCL looks very, very prime here. Closed right above that 200-day where it failed earlier in the month. But again, how we're broadening out and looking at the travel sector because we're starting to see that flow, right? We had the trip put riders as well. That chart is a little damaged, and why you're probably seeing put riders because that's the play for it, right? It's not necessarily a directional play here, but I even have this quarterly open marked here. So quarterly is back green, monthly's green, breaking the prior month high. You have a very good setup here with supporting like theme sector strength, right? So RCL, great setup here. Let's go back to a weekly and look at CCL. Again, great looking weekly candle. I kind of see a broadening formation here. But again, failed breakdown, failed, outside bar, failed breakdown, push up, inside candle, outside bar. Buyers are really, really strong here. And we're, again, just reclaiming that 200-day, and this is kind of like the base breakout area, right? So very strong area. Now we know, like, if we start to see more flow into travel, airlines, cruise lines, right? We know that the structure is favorable for upside, right? Big failed monthly 2 bar on CCL, just like RCL, and we are breaking May highs again, right? So as long as May highs hold on like dips on the daily, hourly, whatever, this chart looks really, really good here. So just kind of wanted to touch on the travel sector. Another thing, lithium. ALB posted a swing trade idea on this one a week ago. I mentioned if that retracement area didn't hold, we'd likely revisit the bottom of this broadening formation. We did that, right? 200 days sitting at the same area. We talked about the 200 day where it was, and then the weekly 200 SMA. And now you're putting in a big failed weekly candle, right? Broke last week's lows, hammered that broadening formation, took liquidity, 200 SMA, closed back at highs right under that weekly 8 EMA. So to look at a little bit higher time frame structure, as long as we hold above May's lows now, that 165.67, about 5 points lower. You can make a case that this is trying to bottom here. You got a long ways to go up until that 50 retracement on last month. So why do I bring up ALB? Because we had, well, first the chart looks great. It popped up on my failed 2 weekly scanner, but we had a lot of flow this week in SGML, right? I mentioned that was another lithium play. What you want to see in sectors is like similar style candles like we saw in travel. Well, SGML, big weekly failed 2 candle off this big breakout VWAP. If we go down to a daily, it's a little bit more apparent, but we had huge buyers right for July on this ugly candle for the 16s and 17s, and now it's almost in the money. So you're seeing flow into similar sectors, similar failed breakdowns across the board. So for me, this puts lithium kind of back in focus, right? Big support area. We want to see, big range this week. So, kind of want to see like an inside bar or something shape up. I don't want to chase like the highs here. This is just kind of putting on radar that we have flow, we have like technical structure for a bottom for these names to try and move up higher. And another lithium name that popped up on my scanner is SQM. Again, big failed weekly breakdown, failed 2 candle closing back at the highs. So this kind of puts that back on radar for me. And to kind of speed this up as I am getting long-winded, looking at copper again, right? Big failed 2 candle here. Big battle here between buyers and sellers. Last week, obviously, with the market weakness, I think this is, seeing a little volatility just from the AI trade because, copper is part of the AI data center build out, but failed weekly here up, failed breakout, now a failed breakdown and back up. Trend is our friend here, right? So, is this a bearish like structure from the week prior? Yes, but trend is kind of overriding that, and you see buyers step back up in here. So, and we are, still gonna scroll all the way out here. We're consolidating above that prior all-time high from many, many years ago. So, still very, very bullish structure here on FCX. Great shakeout the week prior, but we continue to hold over that 50 retracement from May, and we are trying to retake May high. So back through May highs, back through this area here, I think FCX has time to expand here to break out and end the month. Another great looking setup. All right, so kind of talked about sector stuff, strength. One last thing that's kind of random, but insurance, right? We saw this UNM flow earlier in the week, last week, when they just kept hammering like further dated calls, right? Look at this move in the space breakout. Talked about this one. We saw 2028 leaps into AIG. Not nearly as strong of a name, but they're buying to 2028, and they are buying some pretty strong support here into the lows. So what else have we seen insurance-wise? Lemonade, right? So this is more of a risk-on name. They're not like it's more of a rate-sensitive name, in my opinion, than the other, very well-established insurance. This is a little bit different here. So we've started to see flow pick up on this. and this is another like outside bar that caught my attention here on the weekly. Yellow line going across. Talked about this on Voice when it happened, but the flow on Lemonade started to come in when we retested this IPO VWAP. So this is a big breakout retest support area. If I'm thinking in Elliott wave terms, I'm thinking this big stage one base breakout was wave one. This was your wave two correction. This is wave three. This is wave four correction, and we have potential to start a wave five higher here. In my opinion, if market holds, and obviously FOMC is a big rate sensitive kind of decision area. But if we see rate sensitive names, like I mentioned, home builders are trying to put in a reversal. RKT is seeing a lot of dark pool and flow. So kind of putting this on radar as like a higher beta insurance idea as we start to see more flow and kind of money travel into this sector. So let's move on to some kind of individual names. DD seems really random, I know, but let's kind of break this down, right? And so big weekly failed 2 candle, but look at this monthly. We've been consolidating sideways since February. I would call this, roughly a bull pennant, bull flag, just to like generalize it. But monthly 8 EMA has caught up to price action now, well into the 5 EMA, and we are holding prior all-time highs from 2018. So what was the catalyst for this breakout? It was that spin-off into that ticker Q. Another stock we've talked about in the past, but something I noticed after the scan is they have a reverse split coming, right? So that's really interesting to me with this like structure we have, this kind of monthly bull flag here, and then to show the weekly. I mean, it's kind of a great looking chart. Kind of a boring name, right? It's not something I would typically like look at, but Kim names have arguably had some decent flow, but big failed breakdown on the weekly against that weekly 21 EMA has been very supportive in this trend. Majority of sideways price action as it develops, and this is your 50 retrace on the monthly, if I remember right. Yes, last month's 50 retrace. This month is currently a clean inside bar, right? So we want to flip this 50 retrace, and I think we could push up to the highs here. So we have a catalyst coming. We have the 1 for 3 reverse split coming next week. I think this looks kind of good. I didn't see any flow this week when I looked back, but I mean, low key, like kind of a setup that no one has eyes on. Only downside is that this still has some room for this to kind of consolidate further, into the end of the month. But I think this is worth a shot through last week's highs, this 48.24 area. Kind of looked back through volume leaders as far as, big trades. There was one back in May in this exact area. It was one of the bigger trades in a while. It wasn't like a top ranked trade by any means, but anyway. So this DD looks great, and just to look at the weekly chart on that Q name, it's spinoff, another really strong name here. So DD kind of up there at the top. I'd like to see some flow on it since it's not traded much, but anyway, moving on. I have to have a semi name on the radar. MCHP looks really good. VWAP from the March lows is right in through here. The 382 retracement from lows is here. You only see the 382 hold in very strong trends. This is your weekly 8 EMA trend support. But big failed to hammer candle here, right, as it continues to flag out here. But MCHP, great looking name. I know a few other people are looking at this, so this isn't like a special one or anything, but great flag here if we see, semiconductors get the bid again here. So MCHP, CGNX, robotics play, no flow, but again, some of these names look like they could take a little bit longer, but again, this is a big weekly breakout, like in progress, right? So Big weekly breakout from 2022 that we've been in a downtrend, breaking back above. And then even on a smaller time frame, right? Power earnings gap up. This is a very big pivot here that we held. Right, big pivot, breakout retest. This is the VWAP from it. So all in all, this name looks very, very set up for the next leg. Would love to see some further like confirming flow in this style name, but may take a little bit longer. But as robotics continue to show strength here, I think this is a great name to have on watch. Not so much actionable, but Ford, still watching Ford and GM. Weekly 8 EMA recheck here on Ford, kind of breakout retest look. I don't know why all my lines disappeared on Ford. That's kind of upsetting. Anyway, Ford started to see a little bit of speculative call players coming back in here this week. Great breakout retest look. I don't want it to see another low, in my opinion. It's okay for it to consolidate through here. But I would like that have been the bottom if it has momentum. Just kind of my bias. I don't have to do anything. But Rivian, and we're just like running a long time. And TradingView got rid of all my lines on everything. I don't know what just happened. So weird. But they're on this chart. Huh. Anyway, Rivian on watch, broke out, retested it. Will it come back and give me the lines on another chart? Okay, so something's messed up on TradingView. Still consolidating here. Big failed breakdown. Failed 2 candle this week. Maybe this will fix it. Okay. Broadening formation on Rivian. Held the fib retracement here, right? Golden pocket 618-707. Push back higher. Rivian still looks solid here. SoFi, big support area here, in my opinion. Still looks good here. I've still got this on radar. And then AbbVie. I need to go to a weekly. I just want to make sure my levels were on this. But inside week bar, but very powerful look. Had the big put rider this week. Have some spec call buyers. As long as it's over this prior 50, okay, that's a quarterly retracement. Above this quarterly retracement, I think it expands back up here into this 237.5 minimum, maybe all-time highs. Pretty strong looking chart. Inside bar, push up here on the monthly. Beautiful look. Okay, 2-week bars inside as well, so kind of leaves chance for this to expand higher, but has some flow, great looking setup. AbbVie, watching that. Transports, all-time highs, mentioned that. Had the rumor of Trump talking about wanting a stake in this, so this is still kind of on my radar. Failed 2 last week, inside bar this week, as long as it's above this 50 retrace, kind of like this, and also had a monthly's in a failed 2 right now, so that's why I have this 50 retrace on here. Possible for this to expand higher into that prior high as long as that holds. So UMP looking very constructive as well. Again, these broadening formations are just like really sticking out to me right now. But also shows like the expanding like breadth and sector strength we're seeing across the board and new things coming out. So it's already in a weekly breakout, but looks poised here under this on these higher time frames. So I'm gonna try and wrap it up here. That's a long one, 30 minutes. If you watched it all, congrats. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully TradingView gives me back my levels. I'll try and get some charts and stuff typed out, so in case you didn't. But have a good rest of your weekend. I will see y'all tomorrow.